Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Samson's Mailbag Saturdays, whatever the hell it is. It's a fun little thing we like to do. Talk basketball today. I'm joined by the editor-in-chief of Raptors Republic, my dear friend Louis Zatzman. And the Louis plus Samson podcasts are always a hit. People love the witty repartee. We're ready to get into it. Louis, how the hell are you?
You want to hear some repartee? You know what I noticed? You take your glasses off for podcasting. You're a glasses wearing man. I don't know if listeners would know that. I put mine on.
Yeah, the blue lights, or not the blue light, the lights that come from that I use to, I
Yeah,
guess, light
daily.
myself, they go off of the glasses. So and also it's close proximity for the screen. But yeah, I am a glasses wearer. I
I think
haven't,
you don't want viewers and listeners to know that you have faulty body parts, that you have a weakness,
oh,
you know?
wow. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm hiding from it. I don't have all the money in the world to do the LASIK like Blake Murphy but he wears glasses anyways now. Anyway, listeners, viewers, if you're getting this live or coming later, listening on audio, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps the company of Raptors Republic as we continue to fight against the big guys for our foothold in the media sphere. Louis, what I want to talk about today is something I wrote about, something you and I have kicked around. Of course, we'll talk about Jonathan Mogbo in your latest piece. However, for listeners, we're going to be talking about the Raptors backcourt. It's in the name. It's in the title. This is one of the most under-discussed things because it doesn't have to change, but it almost has to change. Like it can't keep going the way that it's set on. And last year we talked about this in relation to Gary Trent Jr. and what was clearly being signaled by the team. And what ended up happening was Gary did not accept the extension apparently given by the Raptors. He left. The Raptors opened up their backcourt immensely at the 2 guard position. There's been play there. Louis, your initial reactions or thoughts on what is happening in the backcourt now and what it might look like in maybe a year?
Yeah, I mean, I think what is happening in the backcourt is a lot of encouraging developments across the board. Well, as a collective, they are still lacking in individual, abilities. Like, if you just take a guy like IQ, Emmanuel Quickly, there's a lot to like. The shooting is huge. The movement, the cutting, like the ability to fit into plays as a finisher. He's been passing okay. He's been, screening okay. He's been driving maybe a slight bit better. But he's not the type of creator. He had a shot clock violation against Indiana, I believe, where he had 5 seconds on the clock. ISO one-on-one, couldn't get it up. That's not something a guard should like. If you're a guard in the NBA, you should be able to get a shot up with 5 seconds. And, that's fine. You can be a really good player without that ability. The thing is, none of them seem to have that ability, which adds a real collective deficit. They all have tons to like. Individually, tons of improvement, tons to like. Collectively, there's a missing element. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. And the interesting thing really is that they this happens maybe mostly with Ochai and Grady, but it happens across the board is that where guys are insufficient, other
Yeah.
guys are efficient. And that they continue to overlap as if you were able to make this great big amalgam of the backcourt pieces, you'd be able to create like a tremendous player. However, for a guy like RJ Barrett, for example, he is so good at getting downhill, finishing on that last step, getting into dangerous spots on the floor. However, he has basically no danger as a pull-up threat.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Quickly has not much danger getting downhill, but has a decent amount of danger as a pull-up threat, especially if he can get to his step back. He's not very good like moving into space and hitting shots. That's I guess a whole different topic. But and Ochai covers for the things that Grady can't do, and Grady does a lot of things that Ochai can't do, and it's just
Yeah.
like everybody is filling in for one another. But the best players are the guys who can do a million different things. Derek White got to
Yeah.
try and be like this like a creator on the Spurs. before he had, injury problems and then pared down his whole role completely with the Celtics. And then he started to ratchet it back up again because he can do a lot of stuff. The Raptors are a really interesting team in that, it's about finding that guy who will do a lot of stuff. And is RJ going to be that guy? Is RJ good enough at other stuff that you allow for his deficiencies elsewhere? Is IQ going to be that guy? Or is IQ a guy who you eventually put into a 6-man role down the road and you say, like, maybe this isn't a lead guard? Is Grady, one of those great 2 guards who isn't maybe the most incredibly efficient, however, takes a lot of difficult shots and moves defenses and creates spacing and hopefully improves defensively? These are things. I mean, Jacobe, it's easy to see and just be optimistic and say, like, this could be like KCP or something like that, right? Like, that's the type of player we're imagining.
Dream bigger.
KCP is a big dream to me. Starter on a championship team, on multiple championship teams, one of the best shooters for a stretch, one of the best, like, 2-guard defenders for a stretch of time. Jacobe, I think dreaming for KCP is not a bad thing. He's the 19th pick. Is that not bad? What is your dream? Tell me your dream.
My dream for Jacobe Walter, I mean, this is sort of what we played around here, is I think he can bring more juice than KCP. I think as a cutter, defender, and shooter, that those are his 3 strengths. And that's KCP.
You think he can bring more juice than KCP as a cutter, a defender, and a shooter?
No. That's the comparison. I'm starting with what's similar.
Okay.
He's not bringing more juice in those 3 areas than KCP. But as a self-creator, and I loved your wiggle little thing.
It's true.
When you said it on the pod, it was awesome. And then when you wrote it in the piece, you were self-deprecating. You're like, I hope this makes sense to you. It made sense to me. Don't put yourself down. And yeah, in the comments, Jacobe got way more of a bag than KCP, I think, not an O. But honestly, yeah, it's possible that as a self-creator, Jacobe gives some pop. Like that sort of ability to get into the middle of the floor and get those shots up in tight spaces. He's not doing a ton more right now, but you can see more coming from there. You can see him running, 8 to 10 pick and rolls a game. You can see maybe the pull-up shot coming. I'm talking about 4 or 5 years down the road. You can see the pull-up shot coming along. The finishing. I mean, he set a screen for Scottie Barnes to close a quarter last night. Scottie gave it to him as sprinting to the rim, took contact, sort of threw it in there. KCP wasn't doing stuff like that. Like, I think that there is a little more possibility for him to offer juice in other areas, although the core of the shooting, defending, cutting, if he pops in those areas like KCP, wow, now we're talking. So, some different strengths and hopefully the same strengths as well.
Maybe we're all misremembering KCP. Like, KCP was like a 15 points per game self-creator on Detroit for a while. Then he had to pare back his role. However, Jacobe, the points you make about Jacobe are true. I don't feel super, optimistic about Jacobe's ability to break people down. I don't know what it is now, but for the first however many games of the season, Jacobe had not registered a single blow by without a closeout. Like, those types of stats, he has a very thin dribble. He doesn't get wide. He doesn't beat guys off the bounce. However, he has that imagination for his own offense, attacking closeouts. And when he gets a screen, for example, he's had a few really great plays operating out of the pick and roll as a ball handler. It is really interesting to think about what he could be in the future. And it is interesting because, perceptions of players ebb and flow. And that's what is most interesting is, like, Jacobe, I think, is more well-liked currently by the people who are, like, quote unquote, looking into things as fans than Grady is, because Grady keeps hitting this wall of defensive deficiency, and Jacobe immediately stepped over that wall and didn't meet it. And even though Jacobe is registered as one of the worst pick and roll ball handler defenders in all of Synergy's database, when I was watching the film, like, some weird stuff is happening. He doesn't have the support. He played a lot of minutes with, like, Kelly Olynyk. There were some difficult jumpers made over top of him. Like, that kind of stuff will flatten out and be fine. But as an isolation defender, he's been sublime. as far as like a guy who's sticking in and you can see from the eye test, like he's doing well, better than Grady. And Jacobe has not succeeded offensively, like very much at all. It's been tough. He hasn't shot the ball super well. He hasn't finished at the rim very well. He's made some good mid-range jumpers, but it's just like there's so much on the table. And if you defend, then you can get yourself on the floor to try and improve. Is there, I guess the question for you obviously is, who do you have the most optimism for currently in the Raptors backcourt? Who is the person
Of all of them?
Yeah.
I mean, odds are none of them reach the level that Quickly and RJ are already at, right? Like just statistically, I don't think it's likely. It's possible, but I don't think it's likely that Grady or Jacobe get to the level in their careers that RJ and Quickly are already at.
Can we like set that out? What level do RJ and Quickly occupy right now?
I mean, they are proven rotation players on good teams in New York. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not rotation. Like this is a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
We're playing limbo here. I'm starting
Precious is a rotation player right now in New York.
Look, I see what you're trying to do here.
No. I'm just wondering, like, how do we lay this out so it's satisfying?
I'm coming.
So that makes sense. Okay.
So they're rotation guys. They're making a huge amount of money, right? Big contracts. Quickly at least had a team willing to say, let's give him the keys and see what happens. Like, do you foresee any point in Jacobe's career where there's any of the 30 teams, he's a free agent, saying, we should give this guy the keys as the lead guard, see what happens with our offense?
No, but the Raptors are also in a unique position with Scottie Barnes. Like, no team would have given Quickly the lead guard position if they didn't have a wing like Scottie, who they planned on giving all the possessions to. Like, Quickly is in a unique position, but I think very few teams, if any, would have been like, this guy needs to be the lead initiator for the offense if they didn't already have like an all-star wing sitting there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But even so, extenuating circumstances.
Jacobe probably that won't happen. Grady probably that won't happen. But they're different players.
Yeah, they are. They're different players, you know. But I don't think they're gonna. You know, Grady might actually get to 20 points a game pretty quickly in his career, which obviously RJ and Quickly are, you know, at or close to. But you know, it's hard to like. It's hard to know. It's hard to know where they're all going to get. I know that you are lower on Quickly, and I don't mean a referendum on Jacobe and Grady's future to be about Quickly. But who am I highest on? Probably still Grady amongst the really young guys. I think Grady, even though he has more limitations than Jacobe, just has a much higher ceiling than Jacobe, given how big he is, how he can get the shot off in tight spaces. And we've seen about a month to start the season where he was just cooking on offense, like everything. If he wasn't getting the shot up, he was getting to the rim. He was drawing tons of free throws. You know, his shooting wasn't like 40% from the field, but it was still like he was still one of the most efficient guys on the team. It was like Jacobe, even though he hasn't had limitations, in a way, we haven't seen anything close to a month like that.
Yeah, I do, man. It's so easy to see. It's easy to argue each point. It's easy to make the argument that it's Jacobe, and it's easy to make the argument that it's Grady. And that speaks to the relative size holes that there are in each of their games. Yeah. And the relative size holes also means that like IQ, who is not like the loftiest expectation, is also, you know, it's tough to say like why would Grady be a better player than IQ? It's not like the easiest case to make. Why would Jacobe be a better player than IQ? It's not the easiest case to make. This is the 19th overall and 13th overall pick in their respective drafts. It's interesting. As far as like the Jacobe stuff, I really wonder what next year looks like. And last year it was very linear. It was very much like, okay, Grady's playing a lot. Jordan Nora's playing a lot right now. Nora's not going to be there. Gary probably isn't coming back. and then they draft Jacobe. And at the end of next season, it's already time to pay Grady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. And guys like RJ will be coming towards the end of his contract that, you know, people will have worried about for years at that point. Quickly will be right in the thick of his own. It's, I guess, maybe a more interesting question than just like putting people against one another is like, what pairings make sense to you going into the future is maybe the most compelling aspect of it.
And what's fascinating about the time crunch, I want to comment on that before answering your question. When you trade for guys like RJ and Quickly who are already or about to get paid, rather than for draft picks, you give yourself no runway to build the team and answer these questions, like what pairings. And that's why you go get a guy like Ingram, because you don't have the runway, so you may as well get good now, right? So I think that's a very interesting choice they made, and Ingram looks even better as a team building concept given that light. As to pairings, I mean, you and I both wrote and spoke about the concept of you building uniquely around Scottie Barnes with cutters, quick decision makers, shooters, guys who get to, you know, there's a lot that can work, but there's also a lot that you need to make it work. Right? Stars, everyone says how easy it is to play with stars. I actually think it's almost the opposite. Stars can be really hard to play with, but you got to make it work. So who works best with Scottie? I think Grady makes obvious sense. Just a guy who can get his shot up in tight spaces. Scottie will find him, right? Like the guy who is tall enough to shoot over anyone. He gives Scottie the most space. Grady draws the furthest closeouts. You know, his cutting is the most dangerous weapon amongst all these guys. And Scottie's defense right now has hit the level where, you know, last year when he was so good to start, it was, well, you need him in this role. He'll be amazing in this role. It's at the point now where it doesn't matter what role he's in. If he is on the ball, he's great. Like you talked with Trey about him laying off a little better, using his length, playing that deny defense. If he's that backline sweeper, we know how effective he can be. Even when he's above the break, his digs, he's digging with his feet. He's really mucking up drives. So he can help Grady's defense a lot. Now, Grady needs to get better. There's no cleaning up what Grady's doing on defense.
Yeah.
But, you know, there you can see the vision. Jacobe as a screener, we saw last night, as a cutter, as a shooter. And the defense is already pretty good, right? Pretty solid. I don't think anyone's perfect right now, right? What you need is a guy who can not just be improved by Scottie, but a guy who can improve Scottie. And I don't know if there's anyone on the team right now who's doing that.
Yeah, when you go and poke around on this stuff, like there's not really any numbers. Like Grady averages less than 2 assists per game. You can't go to his passes dashboard on NBA.com and see like, oh, is he giving Scottie a lot of assists or something like that? You can go and see that like the guy who's most responsible for creating good looks for Grady is RJ. And part of that is the volume that came at the start of the year, obviously. But as far as like passes from RJ, Grady's shooting 43% from 3. Passes from Scottie, 33% from 3. 2-point field goals, it's 45% from RJ. It's 38% from Scottie. Like those numbers from Scottie aren't good. And the thing that I've been watching for, and that is very clear, is that Emmanuel Quickly is almost incapable of finding Grady. There was this play yesterday where Emmanuel threw it out of bounds because he drove and they collapsed from the strong side corner. They collapsed from the weak side corner and the ball went out of bounds. And Grady was wide open to his left. Like had probably like 18 feet between he and the next closest defender. And it Quickly just didn't look that way. And this is borne out by the numbers. Like Quickly is not even giving Grady a field goal per game. But Grady is shooting 31% on passes from Quickly, 17% from 3. Some of this is the games that they've played together, and the team has been healthier when he's around, so there's less shots. But it's also that Quickly, there's this old adage that is like, pass when your teammates are open, not when you're not able to do anything, right? And Grady gets the ball when Quickly is like in dire straits. Whereas guys
Yeah.
like Davion and RJ probably do a better job, and Scottie, but I think there's some stats that are just a little bit wonky right now. They do a better job of servicing the shooter on the floor or the movement player on the floor. Jacobe
Yeah.
doesn't have to be serviced. Jacobe is like, I'll be an opportunistic cutter. I'm just the guy who's open in the corner sometimes or above the break. Like I can, attack a closeout and inchworm to places where I can be imaginative in the middle and hit these little push shots. But it is interesting to see how different guys fit currently. And Grady is clearly a guy who there's a reason why we say he could fit with Scottie really well. It's like the idea of him is this quick reads, quick passes, move, change the defense. You go look at his on-offs. The Raptors get to the rim a lot more when Grady's on the floor. They take more above the break threes. They shoot better at the rim. They shoot better, like from most places on the floor. They shoot a little bit more from the long mid-range because Grady does that too. But there's things that correlate and things that happen. But as you say, nobody stepped forward to be like, it's me. I'm the guy. Grady, we thought that was happening, but he struggled so much defensively, and the just like hit your shots level of 3-point shooting has not been exactly where people would want it to be. So we're left in this muck of like a bunch of different styles of player, but nobody has stepped forward. It's an interesting spot to be. Maybe not the best spot to be, but it's interesting.
You said this maybe a month or two ago on a podcast about the veterans need to be stable. They need to carry their weight so that the other guys know their roles and can exist within them rather than we need more than what you can give. Well, the veterans are gone. So everyone's back to we need more than what you can give. But I would actually amend what you said a little bit. I loved what you said, not to disagree. It's not veterans, it's stars. The Raptors need stars who are able to, lift the circus tent so that everything can drape over that. And they just don't have, like, Scottie right now is playing phenomenally, playing very, very well. But with the world on his shoulders, he's not making the job easy enough that the guys can thrive in it. And the guys aren't thriving in that job to make it easy for Scottie. There's no reciprocal improvement.
Yeah.
Now you toss Brandon Ingram in there, maybe there is, right? Darko Rajakovic has been force feeding Scottie and IQ minutes and actions together. I asked him about that, and he was like, believe me, I'm trying. And he pretended to be IQ, I think he was pretending to be in a timeout. He was like, coach, maybe I should, run it with that guy. He's like, no, you run it with Scottie. It's like, that's the guy you run action with, because it's not about what's working right now. It's about getting them time together. There was, they ran split cuts off Yak last night, and IQ was wide open under the rim, blocked. It's like, even when it works, it's not working. It's just not good enough anywhere to make it easy to see it work. And so, like you said, there's a lot that is neat and cool and nifty, and, I can envision this in the future, but you just said IQ is maybe a sixth man. It's like, well, the Raptors thought he was going to be their star point guard. There's, a lot of misses in the big picture. I mean, look, they're the sixth worst team in the league. There's going to be misses in the big picture, in the present, I mean. And that sort of trickles down further and further, right? It amplifies the further down you go role-wise.
That's such a great point you make, is not only, like I've had this back and forth with many different people, because the perception has changed on many players, and obviously it's changed on Scottie. Scottie got all these extra possessions and has functionally been able to turn it into, his assist numbers are the same as last year, scoring's the same as last year, but he's using more possessions. He's missing more shots. He's turning the ball over more. He's facing harder defensive coverages, facing harder defenders on him. He's facing the best guy a lot of times. Sometimes it's RJ, sometimes it's him. And so things haven't been super easy. However, it's like some guys could make it easier for Scottie. Some guys, you watch these games where he takes like 15 shots and scores 24 points. And the Raptors are clearly leaving it up to the other guys like, hey, you need to put Scottie in easier positions. We can't just throw him the ball and have him initiate. The interesting thing is, like, Scottie, for all the limitations he has as a creator, is like an egalitarian creator who will take what's given to him.
Yeah.
It's just about creating easier looks. But there are guys like, in building this team, they looked at Quickly's skill set, not play style necessarily, right? Like Quickly's skill set is that it's perfect next to Scottie. And they've had trouble melding these things together because, you know, as you watch Quickly play, even though you saw the assist numbers go up, the Raptors assist farm helps, he's a soloist. Clearly he is. We've seen soloists in Toronto before who, like, the ball comes to them, it will stop a little, and they're great creating from a standstill. He's been, if not currently, at least in the top 5 of the best pull-up three-point shooter in the NBA by percentage. Like, these are great things. It's just about harmonizing all of that. And that's why, like, Davion Mitchell, who is a severely limited offensive player, the Raptors offense was better with him on the floor because he was just like, I'm thinking about harmony and not myself. And the Raptors have a lot of guys who are thinking about themselves, not in a bad way, but just like, how do I get my game off? What does that look like?
What's my spot? Where do I fit?
Yes. Brandon Ingram, as you said, might flatten this out a little bit and might make it more clear. I wanted to talk about this with you. There was a question posed on last episode of Pull Up Trey from Mixall Qual, which was talking about deck building, like Magic the Gathering and Slay the Spire and all that kind of stuff, and how the Raptors seem to be like a deck builder who is not prioritizing like going from the ground up and being like, okay, I have an idea of the best deck. You know, like there's a meta in video games, in board games, in anything. In the NBA, there's metas of what drives winning. And what some teams will do in the NBA is they'll look at what's currently driving winning. They'll tear it down to the studs and say, we're building that way. And by the time they catch up, the meta has changed. And that has happened to a lot of teams. But the Raptors are sitting as a team that is like, we're going to build from the middle and we want to be adaptable so that we can pick up on the meta or establish a meta as it goes. I'm curious where you sit on all of this because it was a very thoughtful question asked by Mixall.
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question part is.
How you feel about how the Raptors are building the as you perceive it, the adaptability and how that fits into how metas change and develop in the NBA overall.
I think, okay, so the overall in the NBA, I know fairly well because I used to write about that stuff for 538 regularly.
Still do a little bit.
Well, not
a little SB Nation situation.
Yeah, now and then. It's always a moving target, right? Like we talked about this years ago in regards to Gary Trent. The league's getting so much better. If you get a little bit better in the offseason, you're going to come back relatively worse to the league sometimes because everyone's better. And, you know, the old guys aren't aging out. They're still phenomenal. And there's new stars pouring into the league every year. It's like, man, this is not a static situation. This is an accelerating galaxy. And you try to aim somewhere, you got to aim 3 million light years in the future, and so you can't just aim for what the Nuggets won in 2022 because by the time you build that, it's over. And the Raptors have, I think, been trying to build what the Nuggets built 2023. 2023? What year?
Yeah, 2023. You think the Raptors are doing the Nuggets build?
I think Bruce Brown is a pretty easy giveaway. Why? What do you think? What build do you think they're?
Well, I know you listen to the podcast, so you would have heard me say that the Raptors chose between Bruce versus Buddy as flotsam in the trade. Like, the Raptors weren't so interested in Bruce Brown, the player. They viewed him as a contract that they thought they would move on. They thought they would move him on that year. Multiple teams reached out to them and they discussed first-round picks, end of draft first-round picks, all that kind of stuff. They decided to hang on to him, and he became obviously Brandon Ingram. And that ended up being, as far as like the value proposition, pretty great. But I don't think Bruce Brown is.
No, I was joking.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
No, I think they saw Scottie's strengths as in the same impactful, in the same style as Nikola Jokic's. I'm trying to be as precise as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
No, I could be more complimentary, but they saw what strengths does he bring to an offense, and I think they saw, well, we can build around that, like cutting as much as possible, and but less half court oriented, more transition oriented. And so, who's a shooter who doesn't need to take over the offenses? Well, Jamal Murray, Emmanuel Quickley can do something like that. I think they are trying to build to something they were like 2023. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think they've decided we don't know what we're building and we just need to keep it open for when it does work. I think the trades, the Siakam and Anunoby trades, probably they were targeting Denver's championship. It was closer in mind then, obviously. I think what they've done since then is keeping pivoting as an option. I don't know if I think that's as much an option as you are. I know you think pivoting's
a better pivoter than you do.
Yeah, I actually think they're gonna have more trouble pivoting than they think they are.
So, if you think they'll have trouble pivoting, are you optimistic or pessimistic for the short-term future?
I'm pessimistic about. Well, I think it entirely depends on this draft pick. Like entirely, I think this is the one chance, right, to add a star that doesn't swamp the cap sheet, that maintains flexibility, that makes everything else work. I think Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, I listen to your scouts very closely. I think those make it work, right? If they're picking 7th or 8th, I'm very pessimistic about their future. Yeah.
Yeah, if they pick somebody like Trey Johnson or something like that, who I like and I'm just doing the preliminary look, it's harder. That's like another shooting guard. Like there's a bunch of shooting guards projected to go in the top 10. And if they don't get to pick up one of those like unbelievable prospects who fits into the team or makes fit irrelevant, then they'll likely, if they're picking best player available, be picking up like a guy who either backs up Jacob, which that clearly doesn't create a big swing factor, or they'll be picking up another shooting guard, and you'll be like, okay, what the hell are we doing here? Yeah, this draft is a huge swing. This is a very, very important draft for them.
And the pivoting idea, just to explain, they keep paying guys a little bit more than market value. This has been a thing for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And over and over and over again, they keep thinking, we're going to pay our guys to do right by them, to foster relationships, morale, but they keep paying guys for what they think they're going to become rather than what they are, right? When's the like Fred and OG, for example, had really player unfriendly contracts, team friendly contracts. They massively outperformed.
They each lost probably like $30 million over the like extension. Yeah.
They haven't signed anyone in a while who is outperforming their contract. And I think that will remain true about Brandon Ingram. Let's say he's an all-star again. You're not outperforming that contract. Emmanuel Quickley, even if he does pop and become a one-time all-star, which, let's say he does, you're not outperforming. Like, it's just they keep paying guys for what they might become. And that's not the best area from which to pivot. We just saw Brandon Ingram no one really wanted him for a year and a half on the trade market because he was about to get paid and because of his, play style. And I just don't see Quickley or Ingram or Barrett being that enviable if they want to trade them. And if they pivot, maybe they're productive assets and they can, but maybe they're not. I don't think it's for sure at all.
Scottie's the last guy, and Scottie will make 38.6 at the start of next year or whatever. But Scottie has been giving 2 years straight. He doesn't make the All-Star game this year.
They didn't choose that contract.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like this is the segue into the draft. Is that Scottie is the guy who 2 years he gave you all-star impact over the course of last season. This season, it's objective. Some guys don't make the all-star game. Some guys get snubbed. All-star impact on like $10 to $12 million a year. Huge home run from a team building proposition. That ends next year. Hopefully he makes the leap from all-star to all-NBA, and then you're winning again or something like that, right? In the team building sense. But a guy like Cooper Flagg, for example, maybe you look during Scottie's, all-NBA run, we think about like, okay, Cooper Flagg would be a guy giving 2 years of all-star impact on a rookie scale salary. And then hopefully becoming an all-NBA player in the future. But yeah, there's no big wins.
Yeah.
And they also haven't been able to do the thing where, like Malik Monk, for example, signs for $18 million and the whole league goes, we would have given you so much more money. How did this happen? And the Raptors just have not been able to do that. It's been very interesting to see how they try and team build. And again, like, look, where's the swing factor? And right now, for somebody like myself who says, I think they'll be able to pivot, I think that they'll be able to be like a sum of their parts team. That's the optimistic turn.
Yeah.
I think that, Ingram will settle the hierarchy and then everybody can improve within that and players will make more sense. Players will be able to elevate how they're perceived. Then you can start to pivot. Like, that is the objective. That's optimistic. You can't even frame that as like, that's a balanced view. I understand, like, it's optimistic. They have to be a sum team. And, some teams can have their cake and eat it too. But the Raptors are just trying to find cake right now, like any cake.
And just to sort of relate this to the earlier conversation, let's take a guy who has a skill set that the Raptors don't have anywhere on the roster. Let's just pretend De'Aaron Fox is a Raptor, right? The ability to just hit the paint anytime, like this monstrous driver, finisher. I think Grady Dick, Jacobe Walter, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, all these backcourt guys, I think look way better if you have someone who can be that circus tentpole. I'm mashing it all together.
Yeah, dude.
If they can be that circus tentpole and like lift it all up, that makes the question was, how do they fit together? Well, Scottie doesn't fit with those guys without De'Aaron Fox or some comparable player who can fulfill that role in a half-court offense. And but then if you have that guy fulfilling that role, if you have De'Aaron Fox, man, I think that fit looks really nice in a lot of ways with a lot of those guys. I think Quickly, if he was asked to scale down and just gun, man, he could be phenomenal. He would look really, really good in a lot of ways.
Well, he looked so good in that role that he became like, there's only like 6 or 7 guys in the league at a time who are sitting on a bench who people say like, maybe that guy has stardom that he's not able.
That's right.
And Quickly was so good as a gunner that people were like, and the Raptors said, let's make the bet. And the Raptors, like, it wasn't that they loved Quickly so much. They did like Quickly, of course, they still do. Some of it is like, this is who it makes sense to trade OG to. This is the package we're getting back. We do like Quickly a lot. We believe in RJ more, but like, they had to believe in Quickly to make that trade. If you didn't believe in Quickly because you knew you had to pay him too, you're probably not hitting yes on that trade, especially since they made that trade in December. It wasn't like, at the finish line, we got to get this done. They made it in December. It's there's only so many guys that you can make that bet on, but Quickly was one of them. He's a gunner. Yeah.
And he can, I think there's a lot more than what he gave in New York. Just because he hasn't been this like star lead guard doesn't mean he's, a 20-minute per game gunner off the bench. He's a lot more than what he was in New York.
Yeah, of course.
No matter what else happens, he's already proven that. But all this to say, that's why this draft is such a huge, like, this offseason is what decides when they're going to contend, if they are going to. It's what decides which pairings work. It's what decides what of those backcourts they want to keep it, which weaknesses matter, which don't. It's everything is just which star rookie they're able to add. It's huge, man, which was why Emmanuel Quickly fouling on that Kobe White shot was the reverse Bino Udrih. That saved Toronto's future, man.
Or Ben Uzo.
Yeah.
So, and we back in chat has posed a couple really good questions. Says, do you think we need to change the coaching to better improve our offense? For example, late game decisions. Also saying, high key, I feel like we need to scale down everyone's role and then everyone will start improving. And talking about how they need more Ochaiification of other young guys' roles. This is a lot of good thoughts. My quick stuff, and then I'll swing to you. there you can only Ochaiificate one Ochai because those are the easiest shots on the floor at any given time.
Yeah.
Like only a couple guys get to make the basket cut. Only a couple guys get the wide open threes. Only a couple guys get to be the guy who leaks out in transition, right? Like Scottie can't leak out in transition like he used to because he has to help out on the glass.
Yeah.
They've been asking RJ to hang back and help out on the glass, and they also want him as a guy to push with the ball in hand. Grady, they don't ask him to cut to the rim in transition. They say go out to the corner or sit above the break so that the defender and have someone fill to the corner behind you, right? Like there's only room for one Ochai. And then the scale everybody's roll down, like they can't. They need a requisite amount of creation, which is why RJ looks a lot better than people thought, because there's just more room for him to try. And he has taken like pick and roll possessions and given you gobs of points. But it's like, how many teams would have given RJ that role? Not very many. But the Raptors need creation. Scottie hasn't been able to take all these extra possessions and just create a bunch. So by proxy of that, RJ takes on more possessions. You see something, but the Raptors need it from everybody. I'm curious where you sit on that, Louis, and then we can talk about late game decision making or execution, tanking, as it were.
There's like 26, 24, I don't know, teams in the league that have a point guard or two. You can just give 2,000 pick and rolls in the season to and say, we're going to eat some stew tonight. Like, you know, it's not filet mignon, but like, we're going to eat something. We're going to be fed. There's a couple teams, and the Raptors are one of them, who don't have that guy. It's like, well, you're going to eat your bowl tonight. You're going to have to eat your bowl because you don't have any stew in it. Tonight, you're going to have to chew some grass. Tonight, you're going to go to bed hungry.
Chew on a good.
I wrote that piece before 2023-24. Who's going to run pick and rolls for the Raptors? And I think it's even more apropos now than it was then. It's like, well, who is going to put stew in the bowl for this damn team? And yeah, I mean, it would be nice to scale everyone's roll down, but they just don't have someone who is giving people meat, and so to speak. And yeah, that's a real thing. Like if Tyus Jones walked through that door, that would help a lot of these guys. Davion Mitchell wasn't that. Dennis Schroeder, for, you know, obviously it went south at the end there, but Dennis Schroeder would really help Grady Dick. He would really help a lot of these guys. Like, he's not a star. You don't need a star. But
Davion did.
I mean, Davion didn't do. He stood in the corner. Davion did a lot of standing in the corner.
But he also ran a lot of their initial like primary actions. He serviced Jacob. Like
He's okay. He serviced Jacob.
As Jacob serviced everyone else. Yes.
Exactly. And Davion had one of the best on-offs on the team. They won all those games when he started starting. Like, they don't need a star point guard to make role definition make sense. They just need a point guard, and they're just not. They don't have that.
Yeah, it's for like Utah is a really great parallel example of team building. The Raptors are a team that they're like, we want guys who are good at things, and you can be good, and we'll say yes. And Utah on the other side, like. Personally, I've said this before, Colin Sexton versus Emmanuel Quickley, many people would immediately like scoff at that, but I think it's a real conversation. Colin Sexton is a guy who you can just give a million pick and rolls to if you want to, and it'll be passable at the very least. I mean, he scored 24 points per game doing it, right? And they said, we're aiming higher. And then they give a bunch to Keontae George. And then they give a bunch to Isaiah Collier. And they just say like, we want somebody to pop off. And if they don't pop off, we're perfectly fine just sitting in the gutter. And they've been sitting in the gutter. They had that 1 year where they were like better, and Lauri Markkanen was an all-star starter, and Mike Conley was like hanging out, and they were a better team than people thought. And then Lauri Markkanen started. Yeah, it was in Utah. And then he had an incredible year. If you remember, like Markkanen has not been as good lately, but my God, he was great that 1 year. But anyway, Utah was just like, this is not good enough. We'll just pass on all of that. And so much so that, like, we don't know. After Lauri Markkanen was an all-star starter, averaged 26 and 9 on 50, 39, 87 splits. Just insanity. They were like, this guy isn't going to lead us anywhere. We need to see it from a guard, and we can just sit in the gutter. That's 2022-23. We are coming close. Like in however many months, that's going to be 3 years ago. And they'll have just sat in the gutter waiting. And the Raptors are like, no gutter, please. We don't want the gutter. Yeah. They're very, and I wonder who comes out stronger. It should be very interesting to see. It's tough to rebuild, man. It's tough to make a team good. Because you mentioned the conversations you've had with Darko about like, hey, why does this look like this? Why are IQ and Scottie, and like, why is it, it's like you with Millie, right? It's like, I'm a totalitarian. I'm a fascist. You know what I mean? Like I'm the one
dog.
Who says
that's my dog.
Yes. But when I've been talking to coaches, I've been asking about that culture stuff and like, how do players regulate this? At what point does your role as coach end and the players begin like acting this stuff out? And Darko doesn't have answers to that yet because he hasn't seen it as a head coach. But to the head coaches that have done it, all they say repeatedly is like, the players are I say what should happen. The players are the players that make it happen. And then a good team is when players look after that. And I get to tweak and tinker.
Yeah.
And there's no tweaking or tinkering right now. It's just full scale. How do we make this work? How do we develop culture? How do we develop winning? And that to me seems like one of the most complex and most impossible things to answer in the NBA. And the NBA maybe more so than any other sport. You can see like soccer, football teams, American football teams, like just completely overhaul culture in a second and just like move guys in and out. But basketball, so much personality, so much celebrity, so much like contextual stuff. It's just like, I wonder what makes this go.
Yeah, I mean, those are really good questions. A question from the chat there. What are some successful build from the middle examples? The Raptors aren't building from the middle. They're one of the worst teams in the league this year. They were one of the worst teams in the league last year. They're building from the bottom, baby. It's not like an 8-year tank like
they just didn't rip it down to the studs with contracts. They've been bad though.
Like the Sixers, the process, the shining the holy grail of how do you build from the bottom. It's like, what do they get out of that? 1 second round appearance and 8 knee surgeries? Like, take those.
They just reported. Baby. It just got reported today that they're going to try, if Joel Embiid misses next season, to medically retire him so they don't have to pay out his contract. That was reported today. Medically retire him so they don't have to pay out his contract. That was a report today.
I'm sorry, are they nuts? Threatening his life? Medically retire? Is that like the horse doctor comes in with the needle?
Or was the Dwight Schrute? He's like, is a doctor who comes and shoots your horse in the head or whatever that. Dude.
What?
Yeah.
I have not.
I think it was Chris Haynes reported that today. Anyway, that's nuts. But yeah, the 76ers were like, hey, if you pay someone more than $8 million a year, die. Like that was their team building process. They're like, nobody. Yeah, they like go to the restaurant. It's like your parents, right? Because a lot of people, statistically, a lot of people listening would have grown up either lower middle class or poor. Myself included. Like, what it was like if you go to the restaurant and your parents are like, this is what's available. It does not go higher than this. The 76ers were very much like, it doesn't go higher than this. And like, we'll shoot you if it does. We are going to hit on guys like TJ McConnell and Robert Covington before seeing them leave. And we're going to try and get Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons as like 1st and 3rd overall picks. And man, now who knows that team?
I'd rather build it this way than that way.
They should have won.
As a writer, I have to watch the games. I'd rather watch these games than those games.
Sophia in chat says Markelle, Embiid, and Ben's injury luck has been brutal. Yeah, the 76ers got lucky and unlucky at the same time. You got Joel Embiid 3rd.
Yep.
3rd. They got him 3rd.
MVP.
We know who went 2nd. Jabari Parker. who didn't win an MVP, but also had bad injury luck. And Andrew Wiggins went first, and Andrew has really carved out his career in a beautiful way. I love his game. I love what he's been able to do. Markelle is my favorite college player I've ever watched. His career breaks my heart every time. Ben, just God. But they also got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and they had a first-round pick and spent it on Markelle Fultz. It's like there was luck and there was bad luck. It's just like,
before
damn,
you
dude.
weep live, I believe we were going to talk about what happened last night at the end of the game, right?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Players don't tank. I know
No.
that.
Absolutely not.
But last night, what the hell happened, man?
So there's a quick thing here that I'll say, like, and we back asked this about like late game execution. There's been multiple occasions where Scottie has taken the last possession and done his own thing with it, and Darko has expressed post game that was not the intent. And so when when you say like, I don't like what the coach has drawn up here, I don't like Scottie taking that shot, like Scottie threw the ball out of bounds last night, dude. Like he hit the top of the backboard and it rolled out of bounds. The shot had no chance. And he's missed like game shots. And it's some of that's like creation. Is he the guy? People will have those conversations forever. We had him about Pascal. We had him about DeMar. They're had by every team ever who doesn't employ like Jokic and Shea, right? Even Tatum, they're like, can he do it? You know what I mean? And Tatum can do it, obviously. He's fantastic. But late game execution right now sits like putty in the hands of Scottie Barnes. And Scottie does whatever he wants. You know what I mean? So I like, unless we think Darko has like carte blanche to tell Scottie, like, hey, don't do that. And we have to acknowledge at some point that like Darko is partially the coach and partially like a guy for Scottie, because star players dictate everything in the world today. Like Darko has to be not only a good coach who implements system and all this kind of stuff, but who also helps acquiesce to what Scottie wants so that Scottie stays here long term, all that kind of stuff, right? These things are political considerations. There are some things I'd like to see change with the offense, but right now, late game offense, I think sits firmly in the hands of Scottie and the players. So I don't know what more Darko can do there. He draws things up. The Raptors aren't good at breaking down defenses, and teams switch their slick off-ball screens and they say beat us with the dribble, and they don't. What happened though? Oh God, an absurdity, a theater. I couldn't believe it, dude. The foul. I mean, quickly talked about it post game, right? He was like, I gotta know that. That's not the position to do that. I got to be better. It's just a mistake. Just like a bald, insane mistake. And that's... I don't know how
truly beneficial mistake from the perspective of the Raptors.
And well done to Jacobe White for hitting the shot as well. I mean, hell yeah, dude. Kobe's awesome.
Mogbo played...
He's a hero.
I think from 7 minutes remaining in the third through to the end of overtime. I know that because I was writing about Mogbo last night.
Yep.
He was playing a good game. He was exhausted. The natural time that he would have come out was 8 minutes into the fourth. The Raptors just called a timeout. Their 16-point lead had shrunk to 12 or something. No, I think Chicago called a timeout because they just answered a bucket. And I thought he was going to come out and the Raptors were going to put, a closing lineup in. And instead they came out with a very detrimental lineup. And Jacobe White said, okay, I'll get back into the game, I guess, if this is what you're going to give me. And he did. And it was just from about the 7-minute mark or the 8-minute mark in the fourth on, just a comedy up and down.
Do you think coaches tank?
That's crazy. I think last night, yeah. I think last night, Darko Rajakovic's fourth quarter rotations were detrimental to Toronto. Like, I knew when I saw the lineup come on the floor that Chicago was about to get back in the game. I'm not as smart as Darko or his coaches. I don't know the game like they know. But if I was aware of that, then they're aware of that.
What about so Mark Deneau has been playing the too big lineup and saying, I don't care what the bad numbers say, we have to figure it out. Do you think is it possible that the Raptors
we have to figure this fourth quarter out?
So wait, give me the top down how you think this happens. Do you think there's, again, we're not owned by whatever the hell it is, media. Yeah. We can say whatever we want. Who is pressing because Darko doesn't want to lose games. Yeah. Who is pressing his button? Who is saying hey, probably you should put a bad lineup out there. This is important.
I think he pulled out a cell phone in the fourth quarter. Guys were like, that's not your phone. Your phone is an Apple. That's a different. He's like, shh, don't worry about it. He answered this new phone. Bobby was on the line. He's like,
yeah.
No, I don't think Darko.
It's like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. It's always you get the brand new phone and
yeah, exactly.
Throw it away, pop the battery out. Yeah,
exactly. No, I don't think Darko intentionally lost the game. And I don't think Emmanuel intentionally lost the game. And I don't think Scottie intentionally lost the game. All three of them looked like they were, right? I don't think they were. I think Masai was probably very happy with how it all played out. But no, I don't think it was on purpose, right? Occam's razor and all that, I don't think it was on purpose.
It is more likely.
Insane. It is more likely.
It is more likely in the same way that, Trey and I have that YouTube short or that clip that we got from the podcast where I was like, why is Scottie dancing during live plays? Why is Davion Mitchell clapping in somebody's face and then falling when he gets hit by a screen?
Yep.
Why is Emmanuel quickly dancing and skipping as a ball sails over the top of his head for a layup? Why are these guys? And it's the Raptors, I don't think Darko got a call and said, okay, I think that these players have been a bad team for a while now, that they are just susceptible to more mental lapses because worse teams are just guys who are not as locked in. Yeah. They're just not as locked in. And so Emmanuel quickly is out there trying to get his game off. That's clearly what he's been trying to do lately. He is a soloist. He's trying to get his game off. He's trying to get back into the flow state. He wants to average 20 and 8 over the rest of the year. He wants to get into the swing of things. And so he's just focusing on that. And then he jumps into Kobe White and he's like, oh yeah, we're an NBA team trying to win games. Whoops, I'm out here in my flow state. I think that's what it is. And I think there is a directive to Darko that obviously they have conversations that, again, this is not a quote. I have not heard this, but I am not alleging. I am trying to read tea leaves and do guesswork that there are conversations between coaching and front office wherein they say we would like to prioritize these players' minutes. It doesn't matter if they come at the end of the fourth quarter, wink, wink, I think that's what it is. And I think they're a goddamn goofy basketball team right now. And they do goofy stuff.
And it's also it's a job for guys, right? They go home after work. This is not their lives. They don't exist on the basketball court. They exist in their lives like we do. And when your boss doesn't care if your performance wins or not, then it's very natural to try to find joy when you can and to skip when you hit a 3 when you're down 20. It's not, this isn't rocket science, right? The team wants to lose, that trickles down.
Yep.
You hope it trickles back up eventually. This is a thing. You hope that if these guys are on the team when they want to win, which starts next year, if that game happened in the 2026, that's a disaster. you hope that they're able to not do that.
Yeah. It's, it turned out that it was trickle up economics. So maybe that can happen for the Raptors as well. Like the neoliberal economics. I don't know if they've transferred to basketball, but I hope that they do. Sophia says, is Shai the most pliable player in the league? Which also, I saw Slow-Mo earlier say that they prefer the OKC tank. The Raptors can start the OKC tank by trading their best player right now for a guy who will become an MVP in 5 years. If you can,
they got both
pick
picks. They got Shea and Jalen Williams from the Paul George trade.
Yeah. So if you like the OKC style of rebuilding, just go find the future MVP who's available for trade. The Raptors will trade for him happily, and you can start it from there. Daniel Weston says Samson keeps laughing at some. I'm laughing at Lewis, not in like a laughing at him way, but what he says is funny. Like talking about this Raptors team is funny. They have a comedy of errors, and hopefully that stops next year. And they have paid guys, and they have like messaged clearly, like, "Hey, it stops next year." I hope that it does. It would be. Go ahead.
No, it would be.
It would be funny. In the same way that, like, Cav Zanada, like Justin Rowan, like the guys who do the what is it, the Chase Down podcast? Mm-hmm. They work for the team now, right? Like how they said once LeBron left, they're like, you know what? We're better at covering an insanely weird basketball team. Like it's more fun to cover the weirdo basketball teams. Like, the Raptors, if they're bad again next year, it will be a very funny bad team.
So it's funny you say that, because what I was going to say, I was going to pull the curtain away for a second. So last night I was writing about Mogbo. I knew I was going to be writing about Mogbo from before the game. I like when you're writing about one guy to decide that beforehand so that you can watch very closely every second. And I think he had a pretty instructive game for that piece. I was very appreciative of what he gave. At the end, though, I had wished I had gone a different route, because I used to have a series that I want to continue where it was a pretend murder mystery. So I'll keep pulling the curtain back. I wrote a murder mystery once. And in the process of writing that, I read a bunch of old hard-boiled detective books. Like I read the Raymond Chandler sort of catalog and all that stuff, the Maltese Falcon and all those books.
The Hardy Boys.
Well, no, that's when I was a kid. I read all those. Anyway, so I was reading all that. I was writing that. So I wanted to do that in sports. And so during the 2022-23 playoffs, when the Raptors played the Sixers, I started this series where every loss, I wrote it like a murder mystery. And it was like the detective is you, the viewer, coming along the corpse. I'm trying to see, well, what the heck happened here? And it's like, you light a cigarette, your hand's just shaking, the chalk outline. Well, I thought it was fun. And I continued that the next year. I wrote one or two, and I've tried to save that series for very meaningful losses, right? That means something. Every loss in the playoffs means something. So it was easy to do it for every game. Since then, it's been sparing because not every loss meant something. And I haven't done one this year. And last night was the first game where I was like, well, I wish I didn't have a finished Mogbo piece, because this game was the murder, like, detective piece. It was just it felt different from watching most basketball games. It was just a meaningful night, not in a good way, but in a poignant way.
That's such a good point. We've all been staring at the body. Myself, yourself, the commenters, everybody on Twitter last night, even people from outside of the Raptors and Bulls sphere kind of stepped in to look at this game like, what the hell is going on here? It was a crime scene wherein people gathered around and there was looky-loos because of the absurdity of how they lost the game. Wow, that's such a good point. You're such a talented writer, dude. I love reading Lewis's work. For anybody who just listens to the podcast stuff, and I know a lot of people don't read these days, but go to raptorsrepublic.com and read just from Lewis's catalog. He's a tremendous talent. Do you want to talk about Mogbo? You said it was instructive. Let's talk about Mogbo and then let's get out of here. Oh, by the way, sorry to cut you off, but for people, I know I said I'd be talking about Ace Bailey, but Lewis hasn't seen Ace Bailey, so we're not talking Ace Bailey. You know what I mean? So that will be down the road. Ace Bailey. Go ahead, Lewis. Jonathan Mogbo.
You have been wanting a wing bastard on the team.
Yeah, dude.
All year. And you know who the Raptors are trying to make into a wing bastard?
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Mogbo. Offensively, he had 0 points last night and spent a lot of time standing in the corner. You watch him try to cut. He's like, what? Should I go now? When did I? He just doesn't know how to be a wing on offense yet. Missed 2 threes. One of them was like a step back, uncontested step back 3. Not something he should be doing, but on defense, it's like, the thing we said earlier about no matter what position Scottie is in, he's helping the team on defense.
Yep.
Mogbo is like a miniature version of that. He's just, man, he is impactful defensively. Both times he stepped into the game, the first quarter because he only has one shift each half. The first, and it extends across the second quarter, then across third, fourth. The first quarter he stepped in, Giddey had 7 assists. He immediately stripped him on a drive for very first possession. Rule the block, should have been a steal. The third quarter, the Bulls had just been shredding in transition. It was the pace. They were just cooking. Immediate shot clock violation. The second Mogbo steps on the floor. And it was like he drifted in from the corner just like on a whim. It didn't seem like he had a reason to do it. And there was an empty side pick and roll that the Bulls ran, and the pass down to the roller was completely unaffected. Mogbo was right there, blew it up, had to reset, shot clock violation. It's like, man, this guy defensively is just way ahead of where a rookie should be. It's really, really cool.
He and also in a different way than people expected. His ability to and so this is something I talked about with Trey, and something, you and I have talked about a little bit, but his defensive utility is best used in a switching scheme, especially as a big, to nullify a lot of those great, sexy primary actions that other teams want to run. However, he has one of the worst on-offs as far as the defensive rebounding. And it's not because he is a bad defensive rebounder. It's because he keeps stepping out onto guards and wings. And when they inevitably force a miss, they're giving up Yusuf Nurkic on Emmanuel quickly or something like that. And it's completely untenable. If they make him a wing bastard, you won't give up those types of rebounding. You don't give that up in the switch. Exactly.
Another reason to make him a wing rather than a big defensively.
It's just that it's impossible. Right now, it's currently impossible to make sense of how he works offensively as a wing. He has and I really like Mogbo. I advocated for him pre-draft. He has no redeeming offensive qualities right now. And I like Mogbo. And I love his defense because, and I have to do this because it's a joke, Lewis, and I couldn't possibly stop myself from doing a joke. Whereas if you're looking at the screen, for audio listeners, I'm very sorry, but if you're looking at the screen right now and you see the back wall behind me, Scottie occupies all this space, and it's hard to imagine how you're going to get here because he's in front of you. And when Mogbo guards you, he's like this, dude. He's hey, where are you planning on going, man? I'm going to pull up the action. He just crowds your space. He and Scottie do it so differently at the point of attack. And Mogbo is the guy who you can see twitching with 2 guards and ones. And even if he's in the same way that Pascal used to mirror dudes, Mogbo can clearly chop feet and mirror with very strong athletes. And in the same way that Precious used to be able to as well. He doesn't have the fluidity of Precious's athleticism or the vertical pop, quite frankly, but he's the wing bastard is there if he can be a wing on offense.
And I see he's got juice. He's got wiggle in the way his body moves.
That left to right cross is slick. Unexpectedly.
He's just he doesn't turn the momentum into shot attempts. He turns it into pivot one way, pivot the other, reset.
Yes.
But if he could just transition into just take the ball from back here into there for the layup attempt, you got a stew going. I've been talking about stew so much this podcast.
I mean, big shout out.
Just ate lunch. Yeah. I just like stew, but I mean, I see what the vision is. He's attempting a 3 game after not taking any he moves well. The offensive rebounding from the wing spot, offensive rebounding from the center spot, it's like, it's okay. It's maybe what you're expecting from a wing. It's like, wow, we're cooking with this skill as a wing, right? The screening, non-existent. That's totally tenable as a wing. I think it does make more sense. You just need a lot of the things that are buried to be unearthed, right? There's got to be some archaeology here.
You love a little we're unearthing stuff reference in your writing.
It's a metaphor, dude.
No, but it's always that one,
It's always. I only have one metaphor.
The alchemy, yes. You're quite good typically at picking up the trends in my language. What is my one metaphor? Do you think?
Well, it's socio-political economics.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Less on the podcast, but definitely in person. I couldn't possibly refrain from showing.
The other day I was like, hey man, I want to.
Oh, Deng Xiaoping.
Yeah. He corrected my pronunciation on
Deng
Xiaoping. What's the real? How is it pronounced?
Deng Xiaoping. As far as I understand it, we were talking about Cambodia. I went and read more about him afterwards, and not to divulge too much of our conversation, but your teacher, I think it makes sense why there's the reverence there. Yeah, history professor, why there's the reverence there. I went and read on some of the economic policies. He's considered the architect of New China, right?
Yeah. He brought capitalism into communism type of.
Yeah. He made them the industrial power of the world. Mao set the scene for it, and then Deng Xiaoping. Anyway, we're talking about China on this podcast. Jonathan Mogbo, which historical figure is his basketball game like?
Che Guevara.
Yeah,
I'm doing that specifically to give you an opening here.
I will not be taking that opening. I have enough sense not to.
Okay.
But Jonathan Mogbo, there's so much. It's like what Trey and I talked about. I know you listen to the podcast, and I appreciate it, especially since we're all under the same banner. But yeah, Mogbo, there's so much to like. Jacobe, there's so much to like. Grady, there's so much to like. But there's so much to dislike in everybody's game too. These guys need to paper over their weaknesses. And as you said at the top, sometimes stars do that papering, and sometimes that's just not available.
And that's what happens when you swing for the fences, right? When you're trying to hit a home run, you miss the ball a lot. That's what the Raptors drafting philosophy has been, and that's why there's weaknesses and strengths.
Joey Gallo, three true outcome baseball. The Raptors are playing 3 true outcome baseball drafting.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't care about putting this isn't like, I don't know who put the ball in play. I guess that's their second baseman currently.
You're talking about baseball?
Watch baseball. Yeah.
I don't. Do you hit that's the one with the bat, right?
Yeah. Yes. Jonathan Phillips says Mogbo guerrilla defense. He pops out of nowhere,
Yeah.
Guerrilla warfare
Guerrilla
for anybody. Yeah. Oh yeah, I suppose. Oh god, things like that pop up for audio listeners, for people who don't see the live chat. Guerrilla, like the Viet Cong. Anyway,
I knew you. See, that's your comp. It's just anyway.
That's like a podcast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Trey and I you heard us on the one podcast. We were talking about Brandon Ingram's phone stickers where he had Bernie Sanders, so we took a small reprieve.
I think that was more related than many of your aside.
Oh God. Okay. Anyway, I'd like you to close out the podcast, please, Louis.
All of our listeners, thank you. We love you. We owe everything to you. So please like and subscribe. We're only an hour, 15 minutes in. I'm glad we're hitting that button now. You give me the reins. I hit the button. Samson, where can the people see you? What do you have to tell everyone?
Oh, they can see me here. You can. I don't really care if people follow me on Twitter or any other place. Read my work at Raptors Republic and just keep listening to the podcast. That's Louis. Where can they find you?
Just here, man. Because ever since I had my second kid, my schedule has been reduced down to doing one podcast and one alone, basically, and it's this one. So you can find me here.
That's and even you're hard to get. I would podcast with you like like 12 times a month if I could, but you're like an eel. You slip from my grasp.
Speaking about slipping from grasp, I have a nap about to end.
Okay.
And so it's time to wriggle out of this net.
Are you more of a wiggler or a wriggler, do you think?
You play with me. I'm neither. I
You have
pretend
wiggle.
that I have wiggle, but what my actual strength is wriggle.
You are a good wriggler, but you do have a big sweeping cross.
No, I used to. Now that I don't hoop anymore, I can't get anyone with it.
Yeah. No, that's not true. I think you got one during the media game, like that big right to left. Anyway, the nap is forthcoming for who the nap tolls. Anyway, thank you to everybody for listening. Make sure to like this is like a AAA meeting for bald men. That's correct. For anybody who listened, thank you for tuning in. We love you so much. Like the video before you get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.